record the meeting, today's meeting, for anybody who's not here today. All right. This is our official second class meeting using the platform Zoom. Last week, I think participation was okay. I really reached out to a lot of people who hadn't checked in with the class yet to try to get them on board. So I do see a few of you guys here. Welcome. How have you guys been doing? How was the weekend? We'll do a quick little check-in. How has everything been going?
Boring.
Yeah, it's starting to get a little bit redundant. I agree.
Never typed so much.
I'm sorry, say it again, Anaya.
I said I've never typed so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember there was a time when I thought online teaching was like the easy way out, and I'm quickly learning that online teaching is, it's a lot. I agree, Anaya. I feel like I haven't done this much typing, kind of checking several different platforms. So my multitasking skills are really being put to the test here. But what about everyone else? Hey, Caleb, Gabby, everything has been okay, you guys?
Yeah, everything's been okay. Thanks for asking.
All right, awesome. Okay, good. We'll go ahead and get started. You guys know our class meetings here are only an hour and 15 minutes, I believe is the time. And I have quite a bit that I want to cover today.
Please try again. I can't right now. I can't.
That is, I don't know why I just did that out of nowhere. So allow me to kind of organize. I came up with a list here, but what I wanted to start with first was last time we were all together, we discussed James Baldwin. So I am about to let James Baldwin go. I know you guys, I've been hanging on to him, but in our last group meeting, I asked a question from the homework, and let me just pull up a shared screen so you guys can kind of take a look at the questions we were exploring last week in terms of the James Baldwin, the closing of the naturalism, realism movement. Do you guys see the screen?
Yeah.
Now I do.
Okay. So we all see that updated course calendar?
Yeah.
All right, good. So from last week, I really want to applaud everyone. You guys did an awesome job of staying on top of the assignments, especially with us making a really quick transition in platform. My peer presentation groups, you guys have done an awesome job in getting in your presentations. Last week, the Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement presentations were due. So I have those for you guys. I've uploaded it to Brightspace, or I'm about to upload it to Brightspace. We'll talk about that coming up. But the discussion board on Brightspace, I went in and you guys have done an awesome job in completing that assignment. Where we are going to pick up today in the discussion, I want to start briefly with the James Baldwin question. And you guys see that weekly question there. What does Baldwin's essay reveal about his expectation of protest literature? We brought that up last week, but I didn't want to go too much into it before everyone had a chance to really address that question. So we're going to talk about that. I also included, if you guys see here, the film, If Beale Street Could Talk. Look, I'm halfway ashamed. What did you guys think about the Beale Street, If Beale Street Could Talk film? I uploaded it using Zoom, but I did try to give you guys a way out of seeing it perhaps a little bit more clearer, hearing it a little bit more clearer through Amazon Prime. Did we all have a chance to take a look at the film?
Yes.
I bought the film, so yeah.
Okay. Good.
I watched it on Hulu. So.
Okay, that's smart.
Yeah.
All right.
I bought the film too.
Okay, awesome. So we all have had a chance to view it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, that's awesome. If you haven't had a chance to view it, we are going to discuss it a little bit later in the class, and I'll kind of give a heads up spoiler alert, and that'll just let you know we're about to talk about the movie. I don't know if you can mute us, but perhaps if you wanted to mute us so that we don't spoil any parts of it. We are going to talk about that. But I noticed last time we were together, when I asked the question about the James Baldwin, what does the essay reveal about his expectations of protest literature? The responses were a little quiet. And it wasn't until I reread the James Baldwin, Everybody's Protest novel, that I noticed what perhaps may have stood in the way of you guys really joining in that discussion. Did anybody find James Baldwin difficult to read?
A little bit.
Okay, I heard from one. Did anybody else find James Baldwin difficult to read?
I just got lost, like, maybe twice. Like,
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I had to
actually,
reread.
yeah, I did too. And you know what? I didn't think about that until I had to go back and reread myself. I refer to James Baldwin as a literary guy in that he really utilizes those literary conventions, metaphor. He uses satire. He uses symbolism. So he really uses those literary devices in his writing. It's a part of his style. And if you aren't I won't say that, and this isn't to imply you guys aren't close readers. It does take a little bit of practice and rereading to read James Baldwin. His tone in this essay, did anybody pick up on his tone? And when I mention tone, what I mean by tone is there's normally an attitude that's conveyed through the use of language, through certain references made. Did anybody notice a certain attitude that was being conveyed in the essay, Everybody's Protest novel?
I felt like he was kind of bitter about the way he approached. Well, I don't really know how I want to word that, but
Right. I mean, I see what you're saying. So you are attempting to, you notice that there was a tone, and you stated bitter. I'm going to maybe say not so much bitter as it is he's just exhausted and tired of kind of, what I'm picking up on is having to address this, right? And we saw
Yeah.
this similar with Toni Morrison's defense of Black literature or the Black novel. There's this attitude that is attached to a response sometimes where you can tell they're exhausted of having to go there. He may be exhausted that he even has to explain this. But I definitely noticed it in the literature. What I mentioned earlier about James Baldwin, he knows how to give an epic read. And I don't really mean that, as just kind of saying, just to say something. James Baldwin, he would shut people down through his writing, through his lectures. He would do a lot of face-to-face debates, especially during this period of the 50s, 60s, and even 70s. We're going to take a look at a debate he did with Nikki Giovanni
yes.
a little bit later as well, but he always engaged in these debates, and his weapons were his words. So when you read James Baldwin, yes, sometimes the language or the vocabulary may seem cumbersome. Oh, he's very intentional with the wording. He's very intentional with how he lays out his arguments. So in Everybody's Protest novel, you guys kind of see how it begins with his laying out of his expectations. He begins with his expectations. Then he uses the examples of Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin and Richard Wright's A Native Son to spell out those expectations. So it did kind of take a little bit of practice, a little bit of rereading James Baldwin, but he did a good job of laying out the expectations. Last week, Gabby got us started in the discussion by saying one of the main expectations James Baldwin had of protest novel is for it to tell the truth. And I think we left the discussion there. But what I want to look at is the responses you guys gave in the discussion board assignment. So let me pull this up. Bear with me 1 second. And then I'll share my screen with you guys. Let me pull it up. I've gone through and taken a look at the responses where you guys were responding to that weekly question. And I like what I read. So pulling it up, I'm going to shout out a few of you here or there. I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I know. So I'm not reading everything. I'm picking out certain parts of it. So one person who responded to the assignment, I don't believe I saw her in class as of yet, but Jalea pointed out in response to the question, what are some expectations that James Baldwin has of the protest novel? She responded that they should connect with reality, right? And that is one of the expectations that I think is closely connected to, here, and let me share my screen with you guys, that I believe is connected to telling the truth, right? So again, when we think of telling the truth, it's kind of presenting the complete story. So I see that Jalea identified that. Someone else to share. Can you guys see this page?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, someone else to share. Ethel, she added that one of the expectations that James Baldwin lays out about the protest novel is its need to challenge mainstream ideals. So this still is a vein in telling the truth, but also in presenting a complete story. So it needs to be a challenge of the stereotypes, ideologies of that time, right? So just to kind of quote Ethel, a protest novel has to challenge mainstream ideas of racial, I'll say, and sexual stereotypes instead of reinforcing the existing ones. Did you guys notice this in the essay?
Yes.
Right, so we saw how when he laid out Harriet Beecher Stowe's the Uncle Tom's Cabin, what peeved him, and Anaya said he seemed bitter. He's a little bit annoyed with Harriet Beecher Stowe, right? And we see that in his tone, but he feels here is this author who wants to be painted as this moral voice in the text, but what she was really doing was still presenting stereotypes. He had issue with that, right? Something else to share, because you guys did well with this. If you guys have background noise,
Yeah, I can't hear. Can you
door.
please mute your phone if you're not, or your Zoom if you're not speaking?
Yeah, if you're not speaking, make sure you guys are muting so that we're not picking up your background noise. All right, something else I see here that Caleb added, and Caleb made quite a few points. But again, in laying out Baldwin's expectation of the protest novel, he was dead against sentimentality, right? Kind of this playing up on a moral, didactic, preachy tone, right? So Caleb says Baldwin's criticism of Uncle Tom's Cabin says that he believes Black people in society as a whole are corrupted by the American dream. This sentimentality and use of that, it seems to present Black people as inadequate, right? So he gave quite a few examples from Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. He laid out how only the good Blacks, right, were seen as moral characters. Those who were closer to their masters or to, religion were looked at as the moral characters. Whereas Uncle Tom, who's this character, even the darkness of his skin was equated to evil, this idea that either a white savior or this veil of morality is the moral of the story, or is the saving grace, if you will, of that particular group. Absolutely. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Caleb. What else do I want to throw out here? Again, I see Anaya here is pointing out in presenting a complete story and telling the truth, making sure you're not playing into those stereotypes. Did anybody notice how he called out Richard Wright?
Yes.
So it's important to know, we talked about this last week. I won't go into it too much, but we talked last week about how Richard Wright and James Baldwin, right? They were seen as, if you will, the pioneers, the godfathers of the realism, naturalism, modernism movement. Richard Wright was the godfather. He is the one who added credibility to James Baldwin, introduced him to this literary scene. So at the time, this was seen as a major stab in the back of Richard Wright. But it really holds true to James Baldwin's idea that we need to tell the truth. So even though he was indebted to Richard Wright in terms of his career and his influence, he really felt like Richard Wright's Native Son, which was heralded as a protest novel. It was acclaimed as protest literature. He stepped into that like, not so much. This really doesn't represent what protest literature should represent. And he laid out a read of his friend, right, about how he played up the stereotypes, Bigger Thompson in Native Son, or Thomas, I think it's Bigger Thomas, in Native Son. He felt that like he was a manifestation of all the horrible fears and stereotypes that Harriet Beecher Stowe had also played on, right? This idea that fear, and you guys remember in the reading, he talked about anytime we're emphasizing fear, anytime we are making fear a major character, you are sabotaging the purpose or the goal of protest literature, right? Which is to shine a light on these issues, to present a whole story. So he had beef with Richard Wright. This was the falling out of their relationship. But again, he did very well in using that example of Native Son to lay out what the protest novel should not do. Okay, so there's a lot more to add here. Let me just kind of quickly see what I want to add. Gabby. Gabby includes the sentimentality, how we need to avoid sentimentality, present a full picture, be truthful or mindful. That's a good summary of those components. Second part of that assignment, you guys were supposed to include a response to the question, but you were also supposed to respond to, if you, and it didn't need to be a large response, just maybe a response in agreement, or in some cases disagreement with your peers' ideas. So to get full credit for this assignment, it is a response plus, it's an entry plus response of your peers' responses as well. So if you haven't done the discussion board as of yet, the problem with you kind of going a little bit over the week deadline is that now that we've discussed it, you could easily go on and write what we've had just laid out are the expectations. And that's what I want us to stay away from. So what is listed for the discussion board right now, full credit, are for those who have turned in their submission now. If I get anything after today, that will be half credit, okay? So even though I know we talked about kind of being flexible with due dates, it's really important we do try to stay on a week by week assignment basis. So really getting it done in preparation for next week's class, okay? So if you guys haven't done that, you still have chance, but you will be at risk of getting half credit, okay? And that isn't to penalize, it really is to motivate us getting in and doing this before we have the class meeting. But you guys did an awesome job with that. Did anybody have anything they wanted to add to this discussion before I kind of put, go ahead. Is that Gabrielle, I'm sorry.
Yeah, for the tone, I wanted to add that I think James Baldwin said this quote in one of his debates, like, to be knowledgeable about how you are being oppressed is to be angry, like, all the time.
Yeah.
Which is what you can feel in this essay.
Yeah.
He's upset that he even has to address this, like, how to write a protest novel for it to be honest and raw, and to actually, like, what he said later in the essay was to accept life as it is, not as it is, but like to accept the realities of life instead of creating these characters like Bigger Thomas, who is almost the complete just another, like he said, ancestor of Uncle Tom. So that anger and that that other people didn't even catch on to this, like how revered both of these works were, Uncle Tom's Cabin and Native Son. They're revered for being so honest and being all these things, which they aren't in reality, because they're dehumanizing and demeaning the Black person, or just the Black experience, like being Black in America.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's perfect response, Gabrielle. He, where we may have saw bitterness, right? It's really more so he's irritated. He's bothered. He is appalled that he even has to address. And you guys will see language. He would use words such as so-called, you know, so he, even in his language, he is directly challenging the Harriet Beecher Stowe. First of all, he finds it ironic and just borderline crazy that a white woman, right, is being heralded as writing protest literature for a wider audience of minorities. That bothers him, right? And we see that in his breakdown, in what I call his read of Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. Then when he goes into Richard Wright, his discussion of Richard Wright, he is perturbed that Richard Wright had a chance to get this right, and he kind of blew that opportunity. He is really perturbed with Richard Wright because he feels, you know, firsthand of what it is we're trying to do here. So all throughout the essay, he has what I call animosity in his tone. He's bothered, and he feels like that just because they are writing about Black life, and you guys, I don't know if you paid attention to the repetition of any time he would say, oh, well, since they're writing a Black story, then it has to have the poor, sad, you know, he's playing on those stereotypes, but also pointing out how tired he is of this one story representing a diverse group of people, okay? So good, I'm glad you guys noticed that and picked up on it. What did you want to say, Ethel? Do I see you trying to talk?
Yeah, right. And also what I think that that disturbs me about not only Black, I mean, especially with Blacks though, right? When it comes to James Baldwin, is that they characterize him as being angry. But he's not angry. He's trying to say, I'm Black, you know, you put me through some horrible stuff, but then now when I'm trying to express this, the terms in which I express this, now I have to be angry. He said, I have to be really angry about the way I've been treated. And then too, for you to keep on perpetuating, I think like Caleb had said it better when he was describing in his view of that. What he's basically saying is that actually, and this is what James Baldwin is saying too, is that you're taking the practices of slavery and you repackaging it, but it's still like you saying, like Caleb was saying, like I think he pointed out about how in the story of Harriet Beecher Stowe is that now because this woman got some white blood in her or she light skinned or something, that make her to be more favorable. But up until then, and then when she described like the black man, it's still like he got to be dancing or
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we can't be seen. And that's what he's basically trying to say, that when are we going to see ourselves,
Yeah.
right? We'll give ourselves permission to understand that we've been through some stuff that most races wouldn't even have to deal with. But every day since slavery, we still trying to make ourselves acceptable. We have to, first of all, become like something has been done, some horrible things have been done to us.
Mhm.
And then too, for you to keep on with the myth that, black women is this, or light women is this, and dark women is this. He's saying that you steady perpetuating the same lie. Why don't you just say that we human beings, that we work hard, we do the same things, but we have to eat, like he said, even when he tried to talk or try to review the work and tell them they need to be honest because something brought us here. And because it brought us here, we're not angry. We're trying to let you, it seems like we're angry, but he's trying to say, I'm not angry. I'm just tired of you keep on using the same metric.
Yeah,
to,
that's
to
the
keep
perfect
on saying,
word. That's perfect word.
to keep on saying, like trying to explain the wrong that's been done to us.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that James Baldwin is saying mostly is that every time that he says, I mean, even now he's being reviewed, like you said, bitter, angry, or he's going against somebody. But he's trying to say that we need to start off as if we're human beings and a wrong has been done to us. And is it the right for you to have to express it to another race to feel comfortable about it? The same race who put these indignities on us.
Right, exactly. Now that's a key point. That's an awesome breakdown, Ethel. He's tired of having to explain it to a group that he feels like you should be explaining to me, why did this happen? Why do you feel the need to, why did history feel the need to disenfranchise a whole race or group of people? Why was it necessary for stereotypes and propaganda to then further slander a group? I'll tell you who it reminds me of. Do you guys remember David Walker's appeal?
Yeah.
Right. And remember David Walker's appeal, he saw this coming. Remember, he started talking about Thomas Jefferson and the lies that he was passing off in his writings, Notes on Virginia, about stereotypes. He was given word then. They're trying to paint a picture. They are trying to produce literature that paints us as ignorant and inferior and barbaric. And even if we explore things like the Jezebel stereotype, he saw this coming and he warned everybody to stay on guard. So this to me is James Baldwin's, him kind of picking up that mantle, in that he's saying we need to really pay attention to how we're being portrayed. And even in the protest literature, which is what he's taken on here, he's kind of laying out how, or his expectation, being from the minority group that's being represented, he's saying this is what should be included. So good job, you guys, with your responses here. I'm hoping that our understanding of this transferred over into our film with If Beale Street Can Talk. What did we think of the film, everyone?
It was sad.
It was sad. It was sad. But I want you
agree.
guys
I loved it.
I heard someone say I loved it. I loved it.
Me, Gabrielle.
That's Gabrielle, okay? What did you say? Am I hearing Justin or Caleb?
That was Caleb. This is me talking right now. I'm sorry. I just had to make a distinction.
That's okay.
For me, it was just very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the ending, if you want to get to that. But
okay, yeah, we're gonna.
It was just really surreal to me. Like,
okay, so where you
I could see this happening.
All right, so go ahead and kick us off then, Justin. Where you at the ending? It was real, definitely real. We know already. James Baldwin believes in, and hold on before I kick it off to you, Justin. Let's review a few things that we know about James Baldwin. He is a activist. We know he's an activist.
Mm-hmm.
We know also that he believes in the art of confession. Remember that from our presentation in last class. We know he believes in calling on, the community in order to support, to get us through, right? So certain elements that we already know about James Baldwin, we see shining through in the film. He believes in telling the truth. He believes in depicting the harsh reality. So some of you guys said it was sad. Some of you said it was hard, to kind of get through. I agree. But you added that it was very real, Justin. You said especially the end. So go ahead and elaborate on that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? My headphones fell out. Just this is the end part.
No, I just said that you had pointed out how it was real. You said especially the end. So I said go ahead and elaborate on that.
Okay. So I made like some quick notes.
I did too. Look, so if you guys have your notes, pull out your notes.
So particularly like there's a lot of instances, but if we're going to talk about the ending where they're literally like in visitation and he's talking to his son and Tish is narrating in the background, I was kind of I was reminded of a lot of my childhood, but that's neither here nor there. But like, just seeing the fact that he didn't make it a happy ending. He wanted it to hit home that despite how hard we fought to get Fonnie out of prison, he was still in prison and had to cop a plea because that's the realistic point of view of what happens to African Americans in America, especially at that time.
Absolutely.
So it hit home to me, like he was still happy to like have some sort of sense of like comfort knowing that his family was there, but like at the end of the day, like he wasn't going to get out the way that like we would think, or if somebody was naive to how certain trials like this go, like usually the person that's been accused is still in jail. So
right. Here's what I like about what you pointed out, Justin. You stated that it wasn't a happy ending. It didn't end the way we all would have liked or would have expected in some cases. That is directly in the face of his expectation of the protest novel, where he stated he's against sentimentality, right? This whole idea that at the end of the day, something can happen, a solution can be found, right? This story can be wrapped up with a bow. He is a direct contributor of the realism, naturalism, modernism movement. He believes in depicting reality, no matter how harsh or uncomfortable that reality may be. So again, that's tied into his expectation of telling the story, telling the complete story, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, all right, so I didn't get a chance to yell out spoiler alert, but if you haven't seen If Beale Street Could Talk, spoiler alert, we're going into it, okay? So as you guys watched, I asked you guys if you could take notes, jot down any instance of truth. So that means while you're watching the film, anything that made you shake your head in agreement, anything that kind of what Justin just pointed out, we either connect to personally because it's been a truth or reality in our own lives. I asked you guys to make a list of that. Did you guys kind of take notes while you were watching the film? I heard Justin say yes. Anybody else take notes while you were watching the film?
This is my second time seeing the film.
Okay, me too.
And I also read the book. So it was not only true, like a true adaptation of James Baldwin work. Like a lot of the script is literally like verbatim in the book. But just the part, like the whole situation of how Fonnie got sent to prison in the first place. That's a reality for a lot of young men in prison now. Like they didn't even do the things that they were, spoiler alert, they didn't even do a lot of the crimes that they're accused of. So just being the right Black man at the right time in the right place for that cop, just getting scooped up, picked up. And then also the way that the crime was, or the way that the case was handled, and how it's really muddy and really grimy and unfair, because
Yeah.
the system is not meant to help you. So yeah, it was just honest in that aspect,
Yeah.
as well as in the acting itself.
Oh, the acting was phenomenal. Yeah.
Gorgeous. And in the book, it's a thin book, but James Baldwin's choice of words sums up all of what you saw in the acting of or the portrayal of the characters in the movie. So because like you were saying earlier, he's precise in his word
Yeah,
choice.
he's very intentional in his language. He's not just kind of conversational in tone. Almost everything he does is in protest.
Yes.
He operates in protest.
Yes.
So
yes.
I like everything that you pointed out. How about the protest that this is a love story with pain?
With pain,
right?
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a one of the truths that I laid out, that I kind of made a note of. Love includes pain, right? That is a truth that's being explored here, right? It's not always, again, leaning on the points he made about sentimentality. It's not always a pretty picture or all roses, right? So we see that. I'm going to include the rest of you, but let me just kick it off with a couple of truths that I highlighted. One of the earliest interactions we saw in the movie was the interaction between the two families, right? Do you remember?
Right.
Fonny's family, his mother, his father, and his two sisters. And then we had Tish's family, which was her mother, father, and sister, right? So you guys remember the coming together, the meeting where they were going to, give the news that Tish was pregnant. During that meeting, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, I believe the father said, hate begets hate. And I wrote that down because even though seems like just a simple saying, the fact that the African American experience, it kind of derives almost in a point from this horrible, at least the story here in America, I'll say that. It kind of picks up this ugly chapter of slavery, hatred, dehumanization, right? And it's kind of saying, how could something really beautiful or good come from that, right? What started in hate, we kind of see these threads of hate all throughout, whether it's the policing, the discrimination, Jim Crow laws, socioeconomic inequalities, things like that. All of this is, to me, in the vein of hate. It stems from racism, discrimination. So that was a truth, a very subtle truth that was told. There was another statement in this meeting that Regina King's character, did we get her name? The mother, does anyone know the mother's name off top? Regina King's character. We just call her Mama. Okay, so don't worry about that. She made a statement in that meeting where Fonny's mother was attempting to blame this all on just kids being dumb, right? How did we end up in this position? And I made a note of a truth that was stated. We don't have anything to do with how we all ended up here. That's what Tish's mom stated during this meeting. And that was a truth bomb that almost blew me up when she stated that. We don't have anything to do with how we all ended here. When you think about the case of slavery, how people were, these are bodies forced into slavery, right? When you think of the situation of Jim Crow, where leaving the South, they were forced in some cases due to lynchings, racism, suffocating Jim Crow. It forced them into situations, right? So very little control is at play. And I thought this was a truth that was very important in speaking about the incarcerated population. Very many of them are there due to nothing no control of their own. And we saw that with Fonnie. Fonnie's destiny was sparked by no control of his own, right? So that was a truth that I jotted down. What are some other truths? And you guys can just kind of throw out some nuggets here that in viewing the film, what did we notice as being truths? And I'll take a couple of this before kind of transitioning. Caleb, I think I see you wanting to add. Look, or did I just throw you in there, Caleb? Okay, that's okay. Who wanted to add? Throw out some other truths that you guys noticed.
Taylor mic is off.
Yeah,
Caleb,
I think he would have to
mic is
unmute
off.
himself. Yeah.
So maybe you don't know his mic is off. You can see some people mics are off. Gabby.
Right, but
mic is off.
now that's okay. So in terms of the truth, you guys, what are some other truths that they explored in the movie? There's a lot.
Okay, Gabrielle's gonna say something. I'll say something.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead, Gabrielle.
Okay. The entire scene between Daniel and Bonnie, the childhood friend.
Yes, yes.
Well, not really childhood friend, but anyway.
Yes.
Anyway. But how
that's a good
how
one.
Fonnie says, "Oh, I'm scared even just to leave Tish," or like what would happen to the both of us if we were to leave each other.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Man, you don't know scared until you've like been in the system."
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And he, even in the book, I'm telling you, like he basically like they literally pulled the same verbiage and the same like words and everything from the book, but that whole scene is true to how Black men suffer PTSD from the system.
Yes.
Like you can tell it in his eyes how
Yes.
he's still scared, and how like he even says, "I'll dream about that stuff till the day I die."
Yeah.
Like, and he even says, like, now I know what Malcolm and those cats were saying, because the white man, he ain't a man, because of like the stuff that he's seen and the stuff that he's gone through.
Right. Exactly.
Has changed his outlook.
Yes.
And that's true for a lot of men. Like they don't really, Black people in general have like this sense of like, oh, it don't affect me until it affect me type of situation. And once you are truly affected, then you are changed for the rest of your life. So that whole scene in itself was a truth.
It was that whole scene was the truth. I love that you brought that up, Gabrielle. Do you remember what prefaced that? They were talking about, remember Daniel and Fonnie, they were talking about Fonnie's attempts to find housing.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
So that discussion started from him talking about the harsh realities of how even though he worked, even though Tish worked, even though they could pay for I believe it was a studio they were trying to get, no one would rent to them.
Yeah.
And Bonnie used the term, so I'm going to give you guys a disclaimer, look, harsh language, but he used the term, I think he said specifically, America hates niggers. That's what he said, America hates niggers. Right? Do you guys remember that portion?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was a truth that opened the door for Daniel's confession, right? Keep in mind, Baldwin believes in the art of confession. They are confessing to one another their experiences, right? Yeah. And even though Fonnie had not yet experienced what
it was also
Daniel had gone through, he did see how Daniel was affected by it. So you brought up, Gabrielle, the PTSD. Another part of realism, naturalism, modernism is the it's a psychoanalysis. And even though they didn't get into the language of PTSD, we saw clearly, and the actor who portrayed Daniel, he did an awesome job in portraying the fear. He talked about how scared he was, scared all the time, because at any moment you can be comfortable, and just like we saw with Fonnie, you can be plucked from your home and incarcerated and locked up and kind of facing all of these ugly realities, right? You wanted to add something, Ethel?
Well, what I was saying, when I was looking at the movie, right, a couple of things, not so, like, scenes, right, but the scene that actually, first of all, it's supposed to be a love story, right? but then the dynamics of because they brought in, of course, them going to church, or I'm trying to see what you want to say. Like they're supposed to be like
Now, they
Christian,
really didn't bring in church at all, except for
but
the,
that's the most right. That's what I'm gonna say. But not so much they brought it in, but his family was supposed to be like more I don't say morally above um the girl's family, but basically what I'm just saying is that when the baby came, right, and the mother was saying like Daniel's mother was saying like that was the girl, like the girl's
you
fault
mean
or whatever.
Bonnie's mother?
Father, right, was
Mhm.
trying to say it was uh the girl's fault, or
Oh, yeah.
right. But then what I was saying was because of their religious background or whatever, that it should have been a point where them saying, and I think that's what James Baldwin, because he had a problem with um fake religion because he actually came up in it, right? And I
Yes,
think that little scene that's not being played in there is the part where your belief, because God is love, and then a child is born out of love, and then for you to have that type of response to it, that
right.
was kind of like stuck out of my mind too. And then actually, where it goes on to with James Baldwin, whereas like you said, like black, like like a black person cannot be found innocent. That he's guilty of
Yeah,
something already. So it's
yeah,
just a matter of me trying to prove it.
right.
Basically, the police would say like, you doing something wrong, and then for that to be not to be true, and then for him to actually have to suffer the consequences of just because, and even like today, is that it's something wrong with us before we walk out the door,
Right.
and then just keep on being perpetuated. And then I think that movie highlighted it more, where we can't live in this world without, because they think that we're guilty of something, that in some kind of ways or forms they keep on trying to reassure us of that, and then make sure like that.
Right. Kind of that power dynamic. There's always this need to reassert power or control of what I call black bodies, right? It's constant. And James Baldwin talked about a few things you brought up. I'm going to bring up what you mentioned, Ethel, about the religion aspect. Do you guys remember from the film, Fonny's mother and sisters are kind of portraying the moral minority, I'll call them, but they
They were
are
being
attempting.
prude.
I'm sorry.
They were trying to be prude
They
and
were trying to be prude. What
and
would you
acting
want
as
to
if
say,
they're
Kat?
higher than thou. Like,
Holier than thou, right?
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind with James Baldwin, he likes to depict reality. So he is depicting what he sees goes on, that what he sees that goes on in families as it relates to the use of religion. And I made a note here, weaponization of religion.
Mm.
There's a weaponization of religion where it was at first presented to provide hope, faith, dignity in these very hard, trying times, right? This is just kind of my glaze over expectation of religion. We see how it's used here in the family. And Ethel brought up James Baldwin's connection to that. Remember what we learned about him. His father was a preacher. He was I think he realized at an early age that he was homosexual. His father, I think in noticing certain sensibilities or characteristics in James Baldwin, he used religion to bully his son.
Mm-hmm.
And he used it quite often. It was always this: if it doesn't look like this, then it's wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And we saw Fonny's mother do that. The fact that they're not married, it didn't, nothing else mattered. It's wrong, right? The fact that
And they was in love. That's what got me. They actually was in love.
they were actually in love, right?
Yeah, that was made out of love, and then now she's trying to call it anything other than that. And then her religion, like as somebody was just saying, that they took the moral ground on it, but they didn't live it because they wouldn't have. They would, they would have none of the aspects of being like you said, they weaponized faith, and I think
Yeah.
that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to say. They weaponized.
Yeah, I put that she stands on faith and condemns everyone else, even her family. So it was a weird, I won't call it weird. We've seen this, right? That's the
Mhm.
whole thing about this, the harsh realities being depicted. So James Baldwin is kind of telling our business in the truth, where a community heavily influenced by religion, gospel. You kind of see what happens when that religion or that particular faith is weaponized. And there are people that I call, they kind of take the Bible and they beat you over the head with it. I'm using this as a tool to, first of all, establish how moral I am
And to
and how
convert you.
immoral you are,
Yeah.
right? And that really didn't help anyone. Did you guys notice how we didn't see Fonnie's mother or sisters anymore?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even though that was subtle, that's a protest. James Baldwin, he's protesting that movement so greatly that not only were their voices silenced in the film, we didn't see them anymore, but you kind of saw the outburst by Fonnie's father where he kind of jumped up and he smacked the mom. So the fact that it was in this family, even though she has her husband, she has her kids, she has the Bible to stand on, her life, even though it's what she may say is the right way to do it, it was all wrong. There was no respect between husband and wife. You could kind of tell, I don't know, perhaps maybe the love was forgotten, right? Even the children admonished the father and others using this weaponization of religion. So that is a truth that James Baldwin depicted there. What else? Because I kind of want to keep us with our time. I'm looking at so many other truths. Let me hear from someone else. We've heard from Gabrielle, Ethel. In terms of, what do you guys think, Caleb, Jalea, Paola, or Gabby? What were some truths that you guys recorded from the film, if any, if you had a chance to view it yet?
I just wanted to say that I can definitely relate to what we just talked about. And my mom actually has a nickname for those people. She calls them Super Saints.
Right, yes. And I'm glad you brought that up, like you talked about personal connection, Caleb. I think James Baldwin is laying this out on the table because as we move into the civil rights Black period, right, or the modernism movement, there is a rejection of the rules. There's a rejection of the rules. There's a rejection of old school ideals. So the how can I call it? The dichotomy that we see here is we see the old way of thinking, this kind of driven by religion, driven by faith, and then you see the youth come forward with new ways of moving forward, right? That's the modernist movement. It was a rejection of past rules, past standards, past doctrines, and a rewriting, if you will, recreating the rules. So here's what I like about, or here's the truth in the book that we can see. Fonnie and Tish, they're not married. They're rewriting their own rules, right? We're young. We may not have everything in order or in place like old world says we should, but here's how we're creating, our own stories. And we see that. Here's what I like so much about the film. This is James Baldwin's attempt at a protest literature. This is a protest novel. And even though we've talked about these various truths, he's protesting something very clearly here, right? So protest, we talked about truth. There's some overlap here, but what are some systems, ideas, ideologies that are being protested here? What do you guys see active protests taking place?
I just wanted to bring up the whoever the real estate guy was that
Oh
the white
yeah.
guy that they were talking to on that rooftop.
Uh-huh.
He was saying something about like how he just loves people that love each other or something
Yes.
along those lines. So I feel like he was supposed to be kind of the character that's supposed to like give hope
Yes.
against like the racism that exists in the country. And you could tell that he was actually genuine in what he
Yeah.
was saying. And actually, I feel like Fonnie was kind of like testing him even still. He didn't really trust him all the way through
Mm-hmm.
until like towards the end of that conversation where he finally told him like, thank you. You could see, like you said, the acting is great. You could see it in their
Yeah.
faces. Like they actually established that trust.
Yeah.
And you could tell he actually does love them without
Yeah.
even really knowing them, you know? So,
Oh, that's a good point, Caleb. That's a really good point. And that too, in bringing that up, that too shows protest, right? These two different groups. And the character, the real estate agent, oh, what was his name? Levy, right? I think that was his last name. He loved how they loved each other. He did. He commented about how that was really the reason why he was giving them that apartment. Caleb pointed out that Fonnie didn't really trust it. Fonnie had been told no so many times that he did have issues trusting that. So wait a minute, you're saying we can have this place. There is no catch, because remember, he talked about before how if he sent Tish to look for an apartment, they would rent to it thinking Tish would be alone. But as soon as they knew that Tish came as a couple with Fonnie, as soon as they learned, like he stated, that a Black man would be living there, then that would normally sabotage their plan. So he was a little bit, unsure of the character Levy. But let's look at what he represents. First of all, he's also youth. So where, let's say, for instance, his father or his grandfather would not have rented to this group, he's changing the game. He's changing those rules, right? And he pointed out he's doing so because of values instilled in him by his mother. You guys remember he brought up
right.
his mother?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
He's calling on similarity in experience. He is a Jewish man.
Yeah.
There are similarities in discrimination, horrors of Holocaust, being treated in inhumane, really demeaning ways. So these two characters were kind of building the gap, bridging the gap there, right? And kind of showing how these different groups can also connect in order to overcome these things such as discrimination, redlining, a lot of historically what was going on during that time, right? So that's a protest. That's a protest in itself, that these two groups, historically known to be separate, what connects them is experience, tragedy, and trauma, and how they are using that rooted in love to change the page, right? To kind of change things. So we see that. What's
And
another?
and then another that I noticed about when she brought his son to the jail.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times, like you know, what I'm saying, and that shows, like you're saying, like it's the difference in the generations, right? Like her grandmother or something would not have brought a child to go visit anybody in jail, because you know, in her day, she was just saying that um, if you end up going to jail, then you know you made your bed and you just lay in it, so you would get none of the benefits, on the track to prove that that you went against their decisions or whatever. But also on how even like today, because I'm only bringing that up because uh, I knew somebody like used to, like I was around somebody who used to always be telling her children that that she getting ready, that they getting ready to go to school or something, right? But actually, like over like about 8 or 9 months later, I found out that she was actually taking her children to go visit their father in jail. So this is the way that she had said it. So I was actually she called it something else. And I'm sure that if I believed it, right, I mean, the children was like, they was going to.
Now, as far as and I'm just pausing for just a second to now making sure that with the generations and the changes, the protest that's taking place may not be that one generation will do it differently, but it could be they're protesting. So here's one way to look at that.
No, my protest, but it wasn't, I might just say it like in a poor way, right? But what I'm saying is not that it was generational, but she was still trying to, even though he went to jail, she was still, and she was in love with him, and he was still a father. She was still giving him the benefit of it and making it work, even though he was in jail. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I like that. I like that point.
That was my point about saying it poorly or whatever.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a very good point. That
she stayed connected.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
I mean, that was the protest, and because most of the time when men go to jail, they lose their family, they women and all that. So, but she stayed on the thing that she understood the situation he was in to enough to make him still part of the family. And make sure her child knows something about him. Like that's what my
absolutely. I like that. So the point that
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I actually have to leave for another class because of the time.
Okay, just go ahead and sign out. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right, you guys. See you. All right, sorry about that. Another thing to point out, I like what Ethel pointed out, the protest is, so okay, yes, you infiltrated my family, you, we're dealing with these harsh realities, but love still persists. Our family still persists. Even though we're having to make adjustments to how we parent or hold our family together, those adjustments are being made. The commitment is there for us to, kind of make this happen. That's perfect, Ethel. That is a protest that's taking place there. Let me get one more, I'll add one, and then I'll leave it open for you guys to add another. But did you guys see the fathers? Did you see the interaction between the fathers?
Yes.
So when Fonnie's father, who I really like, and Tish's father, who I love, we'll talk about that, the ideas of protest. Let me think. Okay, let's talk about something. Remember, we have discussed stereotypes and how James Baldwin he's kind of sick and tired of seeing these stereotypes play out. He says the goal of protest literature is to tell the complete story, right? And not play into these stereotypes. Mm-hmm. Look at the story he's telling, first of all, about Black families, right? There is a stereotype that has been in place that fathers are absent. Black fathers are not there, right? And this stereotype is a lot of times stems from the prison, the issues that have gone on historically with African Americans being overly policed and overly incarcerated, right? So there is a stereotype James Baldwin is protesting here about fathers and their place in the family. Did you see how supportive the fathers were in this film?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Even the dad, even though, and I'm talking about Fonnie's dad, even though the mother and daughters opted out, he was there. He would meet with Tish's family. They would talk to the lawyer. They were working on coming up with plans to get witnesses, to pay for lawyers and take care of things. But it was operated by the Black family, right?
Right.
And that's a protest being made there, because where propaganda, media, or stereotypes in general have been emphasized, right? This film shows very present, supportive, loving fathers. When I looked at Tish's dad, look, and this is just a side note, the character who played Tish's dad played in the film version of King of the Bingo Game. So when I watched Ralph Ellison's film version of King of the Bingo Game, that is the character there. So I just love to see him again. But remember when Tish was feeling a little bit defeated, and well, not a little bit, a lot defeated, and just really feeling like she cannot win. and her dad came to her. She had been getting a lot of love and support from her mother and sister. But when the dad came in and said, you know, he kind of sat down and he embraced her, that was very, very powerful, because stereotypes have persisted that the Black father is absent. If he is there, then he's there in these meaningless
Absent-minded.
ways, right? I'm sorry. Go ahead, add to that, Justin.
Well, like you were saying, like how they're absent, but they also could be absent-minded in the sense
Right.
of like
Or
they don't give their opinion, or they
Right.
don't care to like impact somebody's life like that.
Right. Absolutely. We
Or
saw
just-
totally different. What did you want to add, Gabrielle?
Or in addition to Justin's comment, they could be emotionally unavailable. So like, I don't know if this is the clip that you're gonna show with Nikki Giovanni, but I've seen it, and they get into this, and it's like, oh well, and James Baldwin like will elaborate on why certain men have been programmed to be this way,
Yeah.
and like they get into a little debate, but it's like it's gonna be tight.
Yeah, it's good. And you know, and honestly, look, we digress, you guys, but
Right.
as far as debates and arguments go, he kind of met his match with Nikki Giovanni, right?
Yes.
We'll talk about it. But yeah, so I like what you pointed out, Justin. All right, something else. And I know we are really hanging on to this film. I gotta let it go eventually. But it was so good. It was so rich. It incorporated so many connections between things that we've read. I saw Gwendolyn Brooks, I've seen Toni Morrison, I've seen a lot of these, Lorraine Hansberry, Raisin in the Sun. I've seen a lot of these elements of things we've covered connect in this film, but none more than the idea of the Jezebel stereotype, right? Did you guys notice how James Baldwin intentionally told the background love story of Tish and Fonnie? Do you guys see how they started off as childhood friends?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was intentional. He is protesting the idea that African Americans in general are these sexual beings driven by sex only, right? When we've taken a look at the Jezebel stereotype, we know it dealt mainly with the female, but there's another side to that stereotype. The Black man was seen as barbaric, unable to control himself sexually. These were the stereotypes that were pervading media and propaganda during the time. So a lot of people looked at Black women as easy, sex, or Black men as all he seeks out is sex. This novel and this film showed something totally different. Fonnie was Tish first. The love scenes, or even when sex was incorporated, it was very loving, it was very pure. So even though it may have been in subtle ways, he is protesting that stereotype left and right. Did you guys notice that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the only time that Tish was referred to as a quote Jezebel whore was jokingly with her sister, only because it's the simple fact that her job literally is her standing there being smelled by multiple people.
Right.
And that in itself is a powerful statement. Like the cinematography, the everything was just perfect. But even at her job, another truth is how Black women are fetishized by white men, and how you see the difference in how Trish is approached, and how she has to spray the back of a Black man's hand and he'll smell himself. And how he, since they are in this public setting, how he can't be seen, you know, interacting with another Black person in this way. And it's really demeaning. But how a white man will like take his time and just
Grab
make you
the
so
wrist,
uncomfortable and crawl inside yourself, and all you can do is allow this white man to touch you because this is your job and this is what you are supposed to do. So that was like really the only time in the film where she was alluded
exactly
or associated with being like a whore or
Right.
like lived in that or had to be that.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, Gabrielle, because the fact that when the Jezebel stereotype came up, her and her sister laughed. Like to people who know, to the group who's being depicted in these stereotypical ways, it's funny. Like it's almost so ridiculous that you would really think that, so we saw that them kind of playing with that awesome breakdown of that perfume counter, perfume counter encounters and what they meant, right? One more thing I wanted to bring up about the fathers before I'm trying to let it go.
Okay.
But one more thing to bring up about the fathers. Did you guys notice when the fathers got together, what were their jobs? What were they worried about?
Making a way.
When the fathers got together, what was their main concern?
The child.
The child, yes, but they wanted to work on ways to get money.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
And
so, and it threw me as so much my aha moment, because one of the characters, I believe it was Tish's dad, he said, they want us to be worried about money. Right? That was that truth he spoke. We saw it in King of the Bingo Game. We saw it in Chester Himes, Cotton's Gonna Kill Me Yet. He's saying the game is designed for us to always have to figure out what we're going to do about money. And in doing so, it keeps you oppressed, right?
Yeah.
So he threw out a truth there. Go ahead, Anthony.
Listen, because we didn't do our peer group thing, which was protest, the
but
Black
you guys
Art.
are doing it. You submitted it. So
but I mean, I'm like just saying, but this would be a perfect. I mean, some of the things that, as you said, to sum up, the film is like one of the writers, and it started the Black Art movement. He has said that until, I mean, the best way to say, because we know about like, Faulkner, talking about writers, right? Faulkner, Dick and Jane, and, and the evils of that. And he was just basically just said, I think this was really good. He said, like you said, with James Baldwin, he said that he's on like the culture stabilizer, and that we have to stop. And I think the best way he said is that only when that belief, as we was like Kayla was saying, the Jezebel, the Jezebel, the naturalism, and the modernism. He said when that belief has faded and protest is ended, that's when Black Art began. That's what I was trying to tell you earlier. Until we start coming from us instead of from all of these conditions that's already been have this preconceived notions and lead you to the same reality, that we have to just start off fresh is what he's saying, right? Like start like, and the protest is the beginning of it, saying like, look, everything that you know before, that's not new. But we're not really coming from, that's what James Baldwin was basically trying to say, that all our movements and everything we doing, we still starting off not with a clean slate, but with a damaged slate, and then doing it makes a twist in everything we do. That's why we got the Jezebel. That's why like you said, that's why the father's still trying to search for money. Even though he was working hard and everything. He's just trying to say that the problem is so ingrained that we don't know, and we have not done it in all these generations, but with the material that we had covered under the Black Arts and the protest, from the signs to everything starting off like from our community, like we have to get in, and then now our community, like and I think Caleb had said it so bad when he used in his writings, when he had put how even in our own communities that we still believe it's so prevalent about the light skin, dark skin, and that we're not, like even with the women, that we're not here together. I mean, we don't have like a one, and that's what James Baldwin is basically trying to tell us. Until we start looking at us from a human perspective, that it's nothing wrong with us. What's wrong with is when we go outside and try to, try to go get a job and try to take for our families. This is when this reaction, these interaction happens. But we start off to say that, first of all, we deserve it, right? you know, it's nothing that, I mean, we deserve to have more, like I said, like what y'all say, PDS or whatever. Like we know
Oh,
it's like we
PTSD,
start,
yeah.
but you know, we start off like when we go outside our doors, we start off like the world is not, you know, fair to us or something, right? And that's how we end up getting this back.
Okay. All right. So that's a good segue into what I
end.
planned to talk about today. We kind of got caught up into the film, which is fine. But like Ethel just said, there have been peer group presentations that have been going on in the background. I've been working with the Civil Rights and Black Arts Movement group. That's Anaya, Gabby, and Gus. They just submitted their presentation. I am going to post that presentation to Blackboard. So even though we have to remotely still submit our presentations, you guys will have an opportunity to respond or engage with the presentations. It will just be through the Brightspace discussion board forum. So hold on, let me kind of give my husband a face to let him know I'm on mic so that nobody hears him in the background. So on top of that, with the discussion, a segue going into the presentations. 2 presentations have been submitted. I'm shouting out Ethel and Rakira, and again, Gabby, Gus, and Anaya. So that will be 2 discussion board assignments. Let me show you guys something. So I am kind of rounding out our discussion today. I did want to talk to you guys about it a little more, but the way that we are going to learn more about the Black Power movement, and the Civil Rights movement is through these presentations. I didn't have a chance to talk to you guys so much about it today, but know this. Know that there is a timeline that we are still mindful of. Realism, naturalism, modernism, 1940s to 1960s. During that time, politically and historically, there are things going on in the world around us. So the presentations of the Civil Rights and Black Power movement, it really gets specific in detailing what ushered in this movement. And a lot of it dealt with politics, what was going on behind the scenes. We then go into the Black Arts movement, which Ethel just discussed. One of those founders, originally known as Leroy Jones, Amiri Baraka, and how he kind of ushered in that Black Power movement. So next week is spring break. So let me show you guys something. Next week is spring break, but you guys are still working. Look, unfortunately, there are still assignments that I am going to be posting that you guys will still have to complete. So know ahead of time that for next week or between now and next Tuesday when we see each other again, you guys are going to be reading the Martin Luther King Jr. Letter from Birmingham jail. Now, this particular reading ties very nicely in where we left off with the James Baldwin, If Bill Should Talk, this whole idea on over-policing, over-incarcerating, using jail as a weapon. We kind of get a little bit more of that perspective with Martin Luther King Jr.'s letters from Birmingham jail. So you guys are reading that. You're also reading Malcolm X 19, and that's simply, I believe it was chapter 19. This is an excerpt from the autobiography of Malcolm X. So 2 texts or short readings you guys are reading for homework. And in doing so, I want you guys to keep this question in mind. Consider Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X's attitude and mindset in the 2 readings. So as you read actively. Take note of their tone, vocabulary being used, the attitude and mindset being presented. You guys are going to look at any similarities or differences in their attitudes or mindsets. Okay? It says, discuss how the 2 are different and how the 2 are similar. Now, it's really important that I point out, you guys are not laying out how Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. are different. You're laying out how those two texts, the mindsets and the attitudes being presented, how they're alike and how they're different. So that is the setup for the homework that you guys will be working on over spring break. But that's not all. Let me add something else. I am also including the presentations, those peer presentations that I just talked about. I've uploaded the Civil Rights Black Power Movement presentation already onto Blackboard. So let me share this screen with you guys to show you what we're doing with this. Here it is.
Professor Cole, are you having meetings? What you call your?
Yeah, we are having meetings, so we'll talk about that in just 1 minute. So
Okay.
as you guys are kind of jotting down next steps, one is to read Martin Luther King Jr. Letters from Birmingham Jail, Malcolm X 19, and the page numbers are on the course handout. I'll put it on Brightspace as well. All right, in addition to that, you guys are engaging with the peer group presentations on Brightspace. So I've set up a forum, discussion board forum for the presentations. And I'm going to upload 2. So we have the Civil Rights and Black Power movements, and you guys can see a little bit from my screen. You see here, it says part 1. So there's going to be a part 2 that I'm uploading as well. But for these 2 peer group presentation discussion boards, you guys are viewing the presentation as well as the document attached. So there's 2 parts to the presentation. There is the PowerPoint, and then there is the document breakdown. So groups have submitted 2 parts. I'm uploading those 2 parts for you guys to read and engage. Then you are responding on the discussion board platform by answering the question. And it says, view the presentation, document closely, and respond by generating a question for further discussion. So this is different from how you guys normally interact on discussion board. You don't have to write out a long paragraph or 2 response. You only need to generate 1 to 2 questions in response to the presentation. So if you have any question, well, it's not if you have, even if you don't have a question, the assignment is generate a question, right? Based on the information presented. So I gave you guys an example of what that could look like. After viewing the presentation on Civil Rights Movement and Black Power Movement, a question that I could pose on the discussion board platform is, why was the Civil Rights Movement not enough? And I spelled movement wrong. That's not. Why did we need the Black Power movement? So I want you guys to, even though we're viewing the presentations electronically, you're still a student in this presentation. And as a student, what questions would you like to explore after viewing the presentation? So your responses are only a question, okay? Are we clear on what we're doing with the peer group presentation discussion boards?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm laying that out there. Something else. Bear with me 1 second. You guys have been rock stars in getting these assignments done, so I know you can handle it. But just one more thing I want to lay out.
Wouldn't you have something about David, we have to write something on David Peel? I mean, Walker. Okay, I just not seen something about write a paper.
No, that was just from that's an old
okay.
discussion board. Yeah. The other thing that, I know what. You guys, the essay assignment. Let me pull that up, because this is really important while you guys are on spring break to keep in mind. Now, last time we were all together, I asked the question, have you guys had a chance to take a look at the questions for the final research paper? Sorry for scrolling through this fast.
Okay.
So now here we are a week from our last meeting. Have you guys had a chance to look at the final research essay questions?
Yes.
Yes.
I hear yes. That's awesome. If not, even though we aren't meeting next Tuesday, which is spring break, I am still communicating with you guys.
Okay.
So I'll still be posting things. The only thing you guys really have to worry about doing is your reading. We just talked about that MLK and Malcolm X reading, the discussion board, and also I need us to lean towards making a decision for the final research paper. So we haven't had a chance, regrettably so, to talk about Toni Morrison. But before we leave today, I'm gonna throw in a little bit of information about her. But if you have not had a chance to select a essay topic for that final research paper, review your options. I laid out 10 what I call essay prompts. So they're normally questions that prompt you to respond in essay or research paper. Take a look at our options. You guys are not, you know, I'm not just offering only these 10. If you have a particular direction for your paper that's not listed here, let me know and we can talk about options there. But over spring break, I'm going to be emailing you guys and asking, what is the topic you're leaning towards? What's the direction you want to take your final research paper? So try to have some idea of what you want to do with this final paper, okay? And that is all really rooted in the Toni Morrison novel. So take a look at the topics. But what I've presented to help you guys with this is on Brightspace, I've uploaded an article. And the article is called The Cost of Flight in Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon. So this article is designed to operate as an example of what you are asked to do with your own final research paper. So the article came from a question. And hold on really quickly. Let me pull that up for you guys as well. I have like 30 screens open. It's really insane. But there's one more thing I want to show you guys before we end the meeting. Brightspace. In all of this, Brightspace is going to be your best friend. That's where I'm including all of these handouts, these links, all through Brightspace. So with preparation for exploring where you're taking that final research paper, I've included under course content this article. So hold on, let me pull up a shared screen so you guys can all see it. Reading homework. I see it here. Hold on, let me click on it. All right, I need to add the link to the article. Let me go ahead and put you guys on shared screen. I'm sorry, look, I gave the mama eye really fast. I'm about to mute myself. All right. Okay, hold on real quick, Ethel. Before I answer your question, let me just kind of show everybody what they see here. Okay. Do you guys see where my mouse is kind of highlighting?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. On Brightspace under course content, I've laid out this additional reading. So I know we're already reading MLK, Malcolm X, but as you are thinking about the direction for your paper, this reading assignment is designed to hopefully give you some clarity. But if you've kind of been thinking, all right, Ms. Cole gave us questions. What is this going to look like in a 6 to 8 page paper? How do I take this question and develop it into a insightful, useful reflection of the text? The homework, The Cost of Flight in Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon, hopefully that'll help line it up for you guys, okay? So that's a tool that I'll be laying out there as well. I'm muting. Look, my people is up and moving around me. Okay. All right, Ethel. All right, now I'm opening up. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. One more thing that I want to show you guys that I'm posting that I think will be useful as we. Oh, look, I hope I didn't give you guys a back part. Look, I've been trying to have my
We couldn't hear you. Look, you made it mute. We didn't hear you.
Okay. I am getting rid of this screen because one last thing. I know y'all like Miss Cole, lady. This I think can help us. So let's go here. All right. We haven't had a chance to talk about Song of Solomon a whole lot, but I know you guys are still reading. And one thing that I mentioned in our meeting last Tuesday was, as you guys are reading, pay attention to Guitar. You guys remember I kind of said the dynamic between Milkman and Guitar at the pages that we are is starting. So I want us to really pay attention as we're moving into page 200, chapters 6, 7, and 8, as we move towards the end of the book. These are some questions I'm gonna also add to Brightspace for you guys to be mindful of. To talk about or discuss Song of Solomon. When we see each other the Tuesday after spring break, we are opening up with Song of Solomon. So these two questions I want you guys to at least be prompted for. So when we see each other again next Tuesday, we are going to discuss the text. First of all, Guitar. Yes, Milkman's mentor. You know, they have grown up a lot together, but now we are seeing that relationship grow apart. So I want to talk about that next time we're all together. How did these two lives, you know, diverge? And what I mean by that is how now are they clashing? Okay, so we saw early signs of this with Guitar losing his patience with Milkman. All right, you guys make sure you mute your mics. We're picking up. So, I'm sorry, Ethel. All right, sorry, you guys. Keep these questions in mind. I'll lay them out there, but when we come back, I know we're all on different pages of the text Song of Solomon, but this is what we are going to, this is where we pick up the discussion next Tuesday. No, I'm sorry, not next Tuesday, the Tuesday after. I'll lay it out on Brightspace. Pay attention to Guitar. What does he mean when he says everybody wants the life of a black man? We see Guitar and Milkman also making their way into Black Power and civil rights movement, right? Mm-hmm. So just like we're working on this in class, we see this playing out in the text. So we are going to talk about the Guitar and Milkman dynamic first thing when we're back together. Okay.
Okay. My question was just basically from the similarity or you know the information regarding the Martin Luther King letter and the Malcolm X. So is that an assignment, or do we have to do the same thing like we did for Beale Street? Just know them on a piece of paper, and then you're gonna have a discussion.
Yep.
For question later on in the semester or whatever.
Yeah. So
right now,
that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question, you guys. Ethel is asking, how are we answering these questions about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X? So first I'm asking you guys the question. So take notes when you read. And then I'm going to set up an assignment. I haven't decided yet if it'll be discussion board or if it'll be a response paper. So I'm still working out those last minute kinks, but just know it will be a discussion of comparing and contrasting the messages. Okay. All right, you guys, I've held you over too long. Let me go ahead and get ready to close out the meeting. Are there any last questions, clarifications you guys need as to what we are working on, not just in the week, but also over spring break?
No, but I have a quick question just for you.
Sure.
So for the Gwendolyn Brooks, the last paper that you had to do for her, I had some trouble submitting it just because my internet was kind of funky, and like recently we've tried to get it fixed.
Okay.
I think right now I can get it in. I just don't know like if the thing closed down on Brightspace. Is that okay if I just email it to you then?
Yeah, you can email it to me. That's a good question. If you haven't submitted the Gwendolyn Brooks connection paper, email it to me, but do whatever you can to get it to me ASAP, because after this week, after today, it's late. Okay, you guys. So after today, look, I'm giving you to look over my glasses for those of you who can see me. Make sure you get it in, okay? And emailing, whether you do it on Brightspace, I'll take it either way. So that's a good question. Yes. Quickly, let me
And I have
reiterate.
office hours.
I'm sorry, say it again, Ethel.
I'm like saying you have office hours. Like on Thursday, you're gonna have office hours. Or
I am
not?
going to have office hours on Thursday. So
Okay.
I'll lay that out in a Brightspace message. I'll include the link.
Okay.
But just keep in mind what you guys have to work on. I'm going to itemize it in a Brightspace announcement, but there is the reading of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. There is the consideration of the discussion question, or reading question with that. There is the peer group presentations on Brightspace, our discussion forum. There will be 2 of those. So look for that to be updated. I also want you guys to start thinking of your final essay topic. So I am going to be reaching out over spring break just to kind of see where you guys are with that. So I've included an article, The Cost of Flight in Toni Morrison. So all of these 4 elements, including what we just talked about with Song of Solomon, looking out for the guitar and milkman dynamic. All of these things is what you guys are working on in the week that will be apart, including spring break. Okay? All right.
All right.
You guys are awesome. I appreciate you. If you guys have any questions, I'll have office hours on Thursday. I'll still be posting content. There is a lot to dive in with the music of this era. So I really want to talk about the music of the civil rights and Black Power movement. So I'll be throwing content out there. So make sure you guys are watching this space.
Oh, Professor, quick question. So with the Nikki, Giovanni, and James Baldwin discussion, are you going to be posting that in another link, or?
I'm not posting it yet because Nikki Giovanni represents the Black Arts, Black Power movement. So I'm working my way up to her, but it will be presented and discussed when we all come back together as a group, because I want us to together watch it and I want to together discuss it.
Wait, the entire thing?
Well, I have a shortened version, so I know it's
great.
about what? Yeah, I think it's originally was like about an hour or so.
It's 2 hours long.
Yeah, I have the shortened version. Or
okay.
So I see what you're saying, Gabrielle. I'll lay out the 2-hour version ahead of time, and then we'll discuss, by viewing a blurb together in class. But no, I'm not laying that out prior to spring break. That's something when we come back together, we'll discuss.
All right.
Okay, good question.
Thank you.
All right, my people. If you need any other questions, just stay after. But for those of you who have to leave, I'm ending the meeting. So if you guys sign out, see you, Letitia. You guys go ahead and feel free to sign out. Ethel, you had a question. Anybody else who have questions, you can kind of stay after.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Have a good one, Caleb. Glad to see you guys. Justin, Jalea, Gabby, Paola. Enjoy your weekend. All right, Ethel, I see you. What's up, girl?
Okay. Basically, I'm just trying to make sure because I'm having I had so many mishaps. First of all, the computer, you can't hardly get no assistant or whatever. The computer had went out after somebody, one of my
Okay, now hold on real quick, Ethel. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but only because I know when me and you talk, we can talk for a very, very, very long time. I just want to see really quickly from Caleb and Gabrielle. Did you guys have any quick questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead, Caleb.
Caleb, go ahead and let me know your question really quickly. Even though it's not quickly, I'm not rushing you at all.
I was just trying to clarify what exactly we do when we look at the presentations.
Okay, good. With the presentations, you will look at the PowerPoint, you'll read the accompanied Word document, and then you are going to generate a question. So let's say after reading all of that information, since we're lacking that voice, what is it that you perhaps want to know? What questions may you have lingering? That's what you're doing with the peer group presentation assignment. You're simply responding with a question.
Okay.
Okay, and there is no right or wrong to that. Whatever question you would like to ask about the information that was presented.
All right. Thank you. That clears it up.
Okay, no worries. Have a good one.
All right. You too.
All right. Hey, Gabrielle, you had something a question for me?
Yeah. So I'm thinking about choosing how there's a double standard in Song of Solomon. So I just wanted to know if it was possible, because I love Toni, and I've read her other works. Is it possible for me, and also she mentioned in the prelude of Song of Solomon that this is her first time writing from a male voice. Is it possible for me to pull or compare other works?
I like that. So when you say other works, like what are you thinking? Are you thinking like other poems or things?
I was thinking like how the voice she has in Song of Solomon is completely different from Beloved, or how she or it's completely different from God Help the Child, or Jazz. So
I would love that. I would love that, because I think in you pointing that out, that is directly answering the question of I
Okay.
think that would be useful. I would welcome that.
Okay, great.
Okay, awesome.
All right, thank you.
All right, no worries. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Hey, Ethel, look, this is me and you, girl. Okay, now what was your
Okay.
question?
I was just, I'm just having, like you said before, previously we was talking, things that progressively worse, right? Because, we didn't get
I'm about to close my son's door. Hold on, Ethel.
Yeah.
Look. Okay.
Yeah, have got progressively worse because you remember how long it just took me to just send that information to you. I mean, it wasn't no hour. I mean, it was like 3 to 4 hours. Like I was just, it's words can't even explain how these simple things are going on and what's happening. What's sort of like helping me a lot now. One of my tutorers, well, he's not really a tutor. He's like something over the trio thing, right?
Okay.
Or like a computer analysis or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So he's taking the place of this. So now he's able to come into my computer and try to guide me on doing things. And then Caleb, right? He's the one to help me with the Zoom. That's how I didn't miss class. I couldn't access the class.
Yeah. So Caleb helped you with this.
So I'm just Caleb showing me how to do it, look at how to do it and everything. But then when I couldn't, well, then with Rakira, after you sent whatever you did, we was able to get in touch with each other.
Right.
And she found out like I was able to write on some of the stuff and whatever. But then I was telling her, but then I see that the work itself though, it tells you who did what.
Right.
Doing stuff, Rakira name came up, and I was like, Rakira, how would Professor Cole know that I did the work? She said, yeah, because your work gonna be the last 2 paragraphs, right? So
okay, I see.
You see what I'm saying? Then
yes.
I added the because like you saying we didn't really talk as much because like you saying it's a new medium for us. But what we did to I thought this to encapsulate. You remember the last ports?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ethel. Girl, they moving around. Look, ask me that question one more time, Ethel.
Okay, I was just saying with the last ports to embody all of our work when the revolution comes. Because a lot of people thought that Jill Scott Heron was a member of that group.
Oh, yeah.
And that's so I educated them about that, but they was contemporaries, but also his works That's why they thought he was one. His works kind of like sum up the movement. First, I was going to use James Brown, but that was too common, right? Because everybody know, you know what I'm saying? Like they know about James Brown and a record or whatever. So I tried to use something they would know, but would sum up. That's why I didn't use Nikki Giovanni, because of course people know about her. So I used Sonia Sanchez, because what people don't know about her is that it wasn't for her going through the mainstream education, we would never have a black study department on no campus.
Right, which I like that. I like this Sonia Sanchez.
Right,
so that was your contribution, Ethel. You did the breakdown. Okay, good. I like that.
She did, like Tyra did the history, right? She did the history, because I could pronounce the man's name anyway. Like I used to call him Leroy.
Which man?
But Rakai could refine Amari.
Oh yeah. Like Amiri Baraka.
Right. She did the history of it, right?
Yeah.
Of it, and then and added the you know, I told her to, you know, to add the posters to them and stuff, right? So that could be a thing. So, and then she did the part about how to, you know, to put it into and she taught me on how to do Google Docs.
Okay.
So, you know, like I'm learning and stuff, but I still, like I told her, I could interact with her, because like she said, you know how to share how you share with us.
Yeah.
So those are the things I learned, but what I didn't do is, like after I got finished, I said, well, how am we gonna do it? She said, well, after I just sent it, because our names are actually the documentation.
Because I had read your email when you were like, Miss Cole, it took me 3 hours to send this. And I was like, Ethel, it's nothing attached. It was nothing attached. I said, I'm gonna get Ethel. We're gonna laugh about this one day.
Yeah, one day, but like I said, but it's really good. So I mean, it's not my only class. And then now the thing is that I'm using so much internet, like internet bandwidth, is that my phones are not able to handle that, and so it's going out. Like I had work to do. Like, you know, your work took up so much of my time and stuff. Like, is I'm gonna be able to complete this? So now, after I finish talking with you, I'm gonna have to let them know, because either I owe a bill with Comcast, which I thought I could delay it for some, but they were saying something.
I did too. I thought we could delay these bills. Didn't you hear?
Right. Well, some of we can delay, but I think because the mayor or the government, whatever, he's telling you that the people who can't afford, you know, if this can interrupt your schooling in any kind of way, they got to give you internet service.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to go through that way. I was trying to pay for it or whatever, but it's becoming too expensive, and I'm doing so much of it to, you know, I got to just try to make it for 6 more weeks or whatever. So we have to just see about that. But those are causing some problems and stuff. But I'm getting to work out, but it's just more and more difficult, because I don't know, like I could write the paper down and try to put it in there, and like you said, I'm losing work. Like 2 hours worth of work, I pressed something and all of it was gone. It's like, I don't know what the, it's like I'm just.
You know what? That's the crazy thing about technology is,
And so that's a tough, right.
But you've been, even though you've kind of been running into these little hiccups here and there, I told you, I've been really impressed with how you'd have been engaged. You asked me questions. Now I think I missed a phone call from you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Look, you have answered. That's why I'm just saying, like, this is, like you said, challenging, but it's also, as they say, that we have to be, and that's what age does, is that I don't know it. I get frustrated. I got to keep on, because, like you said, we got deadlines to meet. And then when I can't do everything, I can, like, try to email you, let you know. But I'm doing it. It's just I don't know how to transfer it, or something like that.
But I'll tell you, when I saw your presentation, because Rakira did send it in his book, I was like, okay, Ethel did good with this. When I saw your discussion board, I said, okay, Ethel got her discussion board in. So you've been, you know, I guess the practice really been helping, because with every assignment, I'm seeing you, you know, make your contribution.
You see my response to somebody's paper?
Yes. I think I read your response. Ethel, was you on when I read your response?
Yeah, I was there, but I mean, like, no, not my response. You just read my paper or whatever, because I thought the paper was messed up.
Are you talking about the Gwendolyn Brooks paper?
No, I didn't even like. We didn't get to that part. I didn't even like whether that paper even did whatever good, because I had wrote you an email telling you that's how I'm gonna find out how I grasp it. But then now I'm able to read some of my classmates' stuff after I do some, and then it's teaching me on how to be more give the text give it more meat to it, right? So like from
So
how
have
to
you
do.
wrote the Gwendolyn Brooks paper yet? Because you were supposed to work on it, and then I was gone. You wanted me to kind of give you
I
some,
sent it to you.
huh? I'm sorry,
You
say it
told me
again,
that
Ethel.
a week ago or something. I sent the Gwendolyn Brooks paper to you.
I'm sorry.
We
So
so cool.
I was supposed to read it and
On
give you.
email or something.
Okay, I'll check my email. Okay, I got it.
Because I won't.
Ethel, like, excuse me. No,
Yeah.
I just need to find it. So
Okay, right, yeah, but I did like it because, like you said, I did it like the day that I wrote you an email and telling you what had happened.
okay,
I sent it just like I told you I was gonna send it.
okay. So I'll find it and then
see what I need to do with it or whatever.
okay, and then I'll give you some feedback. And then even over spring break, you'll have time if you want to improve it or change it.
Oh
you
yeah,
work on that too.
definitely. Like I said, this is really like your class is the most difficult class for me because.
Girl, I thought this class was easy, child.
No. I mean, but it's. I mean, I see with my classmates though that it is. It's just because I'm not used to. I think not to use this, but like that's why I'm explaining to you all the time. It's a generational thing because we did not taught to think that kind of detailedness of it, right?
Right.
We like Gabriel and Gabby stuff. I'm like, wow, or even Caleb. I'm like, what? So when I read my response and I read all of this, it was like, oh girl, you got to take more stuff to it or whatever, right? So,
I mean, but even still, you don't realize, Ethel, you'll be providing perspective. You do what you said today in today's class meeting. Oh, what did you? It was something you said specifically that opened up the whole discussion on when you were talking about James Baldwin and kind of like the influences. Everybody's protest novel. When you brought up he tired of white people. I forget it, Ethel.
About his anger, like everybody
Yes.
like express him as being angry, but I'll be trying to say James Baldwin is not angry. He's just tired of everybody coming from that same viewpoint. Yeah. Even though you call yourself like what I'm saying, like even like with with Malcolm X or something. But from James Baldwin perspective, he's still doing the same thing because he's still saying the white man is still has influence over him, other than saying that James Baldwin trying to tell us that we have to start realizing that we have these emotions and we like this, not because of us, because we keep on going on that same script and we trying to enhance it in some kind of way. He's saying throw away the script and just look at that like when people see black women, they say we angry. We're not angry. We're saying that why have you took our men away because you let them not have the same things, and now we have to do what we need to do because we complete things. That's what, like, okay, you're a bad man or whatever. I ain't gonna deal with you being a bad guy. I'm gonna make sure I got a baby by you. I'm gonna make sure my child gets the same advantages that another person would have done. That's what people don't think. Black women are not so much as angry, or if they are, they're not understanding that this burden didn't come from you just having a child or you're not doing these things. These burdens was placed here way before you came.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like it's the weight of the world. It's not just one or two things. Yeah, that's so true.
And like about being married. People don't understand marriage is not the goal. Love is the goal.
Exactly.
Love, you're gonna take care of somebody, you're gonna do, right? So like you said, they're like even right now, babies were not out of wedlock. No, a baby is under wedlock is whether or not a woman had a one-night stand. Like like had a one-night stand and produced a baby. Right. Does she really think that a woman who actually a man invests with emotionally, right? That child is where the man gonna be at, not with you. I mean, it had nothing to do with your baby.
And you know what? I wonder if he was trying to call on with that, because that's a good point you make. That's an interesting point you make. But I wonder, was he trying to call that into question with the fact that Tish and Fonnie weren't married, but were really in love? Like she was committed to him. Was that not commitment?
Right.
That girl was committed. And I agree. It's like he was protesting this whole idea that marriage makes it official or legitimate. He was saying what make it legitimate is the love, and you just pointed that out.
What people don't realize about James Baldwin, that James Baldwin had a friend that he thought that his homosexuality he was in love with the guy, but he thought the guy was straight. And so what happens is that the guy told somebody about, they had the same feelings, right? He liked him and he liked it, but the guy told somebody else about his feelings, and then because he wasn't as comfortable with his feelings, he turned around and killed himself after he exposed the feeling that he was attracted to James Baldwin. Now, how does that? I mean, I'm not thinking to myself, if you seen James Baldwin, you would have known he was a homosexual.
I know, yeah.
For you to have those kind of feelings, he actually committed suicide. And James Baldwin felt bad and always, because that was actually the love in his life. He never found nobody else like that. So that's why I tell people.
What? Look, I gotta read this. Where you read? Well, this in our book.
You have to Google. Listen, because
Okay.
I was trying to, because I don't really know how to do this, but I'm practicing at it. Because you have to, like, you said the same thing. Like when you write material and you find other sources,
Yeah.
then
it's like it help you understand it. Yeah.
right. So I Googled, like I was just trying to figure out, because that was my take of this, right? That I'm still learning to try to express it, right? James Baldwin is like the same thing about even with us and even with all our Black writers and stuff, right? They still coming from the point of, like you're saying, either Harriet Stowe or Richard Wright, and the thing, and what they saying is that